Lewis Hart for the Ring magazine. Delighted today to be joined with Paul Smith Jr. here on a nice Tuesday evening. Always good to be joined with you, Paul. First things first, how's things? How are you, mate?
And you, mate, I'm good, thank you. Everything's good. All good, family healthy, all healthy and happy, so can't complain.
Good to hear, mate. Glad to hear it. But yeah, look, let's jump into it. Obviously, it's been a mad sort of few days following Usyk against Dubois. Um, but I guess first thing first, jumping straight into it. What are your thoughts on Saturday night? I think if anyone saw your Twitter before the fight, you almost called it pretty spot on. I'd like to mention for yourself.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound too much like a smart ass, but that's how I saw the fight panning out. A lot of people whose opinion I respect massively saw it a little bit different. I think ultimately the majority assumed and expected and knew that Usyk was going to win and do it in good fashion based on the last fight, based on what Usyk is and who Usyk is and how he fights, based on what we know about Dubois as well and what we've seen from Dubois in the past. For me, it was I had a little bet on round five as well. I had a bit of luck on the night. I had round one Usyk and a round five. Um, Usyk, I felt like Dubois always can. I thought he may freeze. I think he's always got that in him because of mentally. It's the daunting task walking in out to Wembley against someone like Oleksandr Usyk. In a fight that he kind of fancied after the way the last one ended. But listen, I've been wrong plenty of times on fights where they haven't gone to plan or they haven't gone as I expected them to go. But usually in boxing, if everything goes as it's expected, then you can pick the winners every time. But it's it was some event, it was some show, some fight. Um, Obviously always good shows at Wembley, but I felt it was always inevitable the way it went, in my opinion.
Was you surprised about how many people were picking Dubois to win?
Yeah, I was, but again, that's boxing, isn't it? A lot of the time with boxing, a lot of the people, you know, picking are quite easily swayed and tend to go with, the heart rather than the head. And I've done it myself plenty of times. I've been guilty of it in the past. I've got fights wrong plenty of times, and I will in future. Sometimes they don't always go to plan. Sometimes it goes to plan, and you're just way off the mark, and you're just assuming, that fight in the red corner is going to win because of this, and you've got a valid, a good argument, but the blue corner wins. That's boxing. If everyone was right, we'd all be multimillionaires off the betting industry with boxing, wouldn't it? The same as football, the same as most other sports. But yeah, I was surprised a couple of respected opinions were going with Dubai and heavily backing Dubai, but most I felt was going with Usyk, and I felt like most who were in the trade probably knew and imagined that Usyk was going to come through. But there was a lot of talks about him being old and aging. Um, I've heard a couple of rumours from inside the camp that he was sparring differently, but none of them were age related. None of them were sort of lack of performance or bad performance. They were usually that he's fighting aggressively and he's sparring aggressively. He's on the front foot in sparring. He's taking the centre of the ring in sparring. And I always thought that Dubois would come out and try and take the centre of the ring out of nerves as well. So it was one of them fights.
Does it surprise you how good Usyk is? Because he's so experienced and regardless of sort of experience, and he looks after his body, no doubt. But at some point, there is miles on the clock in a sense. But if you look at Usyk at age 38, there's no signs of sort of slowing down. Does it surprise you that he's that good, especially after the amount of sort of fights he's had in the age that he is?
Not really, because he hasn't had that many fights, has he, in the pro compared to others at his age, let's say, firstly. Secondly, he's a heavyweight. He wasn't a heavyweight, but he is now. He's a fully fledged heavyweight now, and they tend to age a bit slower, or they tend to peak a bit later, let's say, in the life. So 38 for the heavyweight nowadays isn't technically that old compared to what we've seen some in the past. But he's always obviously looked after his body. I'm not sure if he drinks. I'm not sure if he takes much time off training to sort of get too out of shape. Um, when he trains like an animal, obviously, which we've all seen, which most fighters will, but he's a bit different. He's a bit special, and to be that special, I saw the video what he did. What he's saying about motivation. It's not motivation. It's discipline. And he's obviously a very very disciplined fighter. He sacrifices a lot, as most fighters do. But I think he's a different breed. I think he's out there on his own at the moment, and he's proved that in the heavyweight division, beating everyone that he's beaten and beating the three big fellas twice. I think twice each. That's where I'm going. But for me, there was no way on Saturday he was going to lose that fight apart from getting chinned or getting caught with a big shot by Dubois, who has got it in his locker. He's got the power. He's a big unit. He's a lump. He's a good, solid, strong, fit heavyweight. But there was only one way that Dubois was going to win that fight, and for Usyk, I thought there's plenty of ways. There's several ways that he was going to win.
Flipping it onto a Dubois point of view, was there no surprise in your sort of view that of how poor he was? Would you say if you think it was a poor performance, obviously.
I don't think it was a poor performance. I just don't think he's on Usyk's level. There's no shame in that. No shame in that whatsoever. Physically, tactically, he's not on Usyk's level, and that's not me putting him down saying that. Mentally, he's leagues away, which was proven on the night. And I've said this in the past about Dubois, and I don't want to bang on and sound like I'm proving that I was right all along. But he's lost 3 fights. He's been counted to 10 on all 3 of them. That doesn't happen much in boxing nowadays. If a fighter's in that bad shape on the ground and they're not going to get up, the referee usually waves it off. If the fighter is concussed or hurt that much, the referee usually waves it off. The only way the referee will get to 10 nowadays is usually body shots that you see. Usually the headshot where they're stumbling, they're just about getting up, but they're really trying their best to get up. They get up, the ref continues to count for the 9 and 10, maybe on the feet, and then waves it off. But he's lost 3 fights on his knee looking at the referee or looking at his corner. And I felt that not I'm not saying that I knew that was going to happen this time, but that is in his locker and that is always going to show its head again. And I felt that that's what happened in the fight. Good shot for the knockout, Usyk. The first shot will put him down. I didn't feel was much in it. Didn't look like there's much in it, but I'm not taking them shots. So, I get it. People at home maybe sitting thinking, well, you're not in there. You don't know. I get that. But when you watch boxing as much as we do, pros, ex-pros, when you've been in fights where you've took shots, been hurt. I've been down, I've been hurt, I've been concussed. I've took big shots. I've been down off shots what weren't as hard as the ones what dropped me, but they dropped me because they hit me in a perfect spot. You know, you've been around it and seen it, so you're aware. You're also still around the game now, as in we're in corners. You get to watch your family members fighting. So you see a lot of boxing. You know how people sort of fall, drop. I remember Steve Gray saying something recently about the Jack Cattle knockdown when the legs come together in a fight. He didn't rule a knockdown, and I thought it was great refereeing by him. And he said, "I knew by the way he fell, it wasn't a shot." Like that's experience, what you can
Mm.
only gain through being in there from a referee like Steve Gray. And that shot, the first shot, it was just a little sort of clip and hook that's
Mhm.
put Dubois down, and I don't feel it had enough in it to do that. But the second one was a devastating shot. Could he have got up? That's obviously what you're going to probably ask next.
Mm.
That's probably the question that everyone's asking. I've seen Derek Chisora and Joe Parker and Lawrence Okoli on radio saying the same thing. And I'm exactly in that boat. Could he have got up? I felt he could have got up as soon as the bell goes, as soon as the referee gets to 10, sorry. He stands up and he walks back to his corner, completely there in a straight line.
Mhm.
That for me is, he probably could have got up. And I get it. People are being harsh. I get why people are saying that. But we're all boxing fans, we're all fight fans, we're all fanatical about boxing, and we're all entitled to our opinions on it when we're asked about it, and we're being asked about it, and we're giving our opinion. I felt he could have got up. That's it. It's no, no disrespect to him. He's had an unbelievable career. He's made absolute millions in that fight. He's set for life. He doesn't have to get out of bed again for the rest of his life. Good on him. I'm delighted for him. But what to answer the question, what you've asked, what I've seen, yeah, it wasn't technically a poor performance. He was in with someone great like Usyk, and the ending is always going to cause controversy because of how it happened.
Yeah, so look, after the first Usyk fight, where people made them claims of Dubois looking for a way out, where it was pretty clear. Sort of the narrative that was painted by a lot of people after sort of the 3 fight run that Dubois was on was, look, he's overturned this corner, and he's a new confident fighter, he's a different fighter. But as you saw on Saturday, there was still those sort of demons that seemed to lie with Dubois. So do you feel like it's a case of like that almost? I don't want to say the word quit, but almost that's something that will always be in him, do you think?
Yeah, but I said that after the Joe Joyce fight, and I'm not
Mm.
kicking a man when he's down. Got nothing against Daniel Dubois at all. I've been in the same company as him once or twice. I've nodded my head and said hello and waved my hand to him and shown me respect to him. I've got absolutely no problem with them. I'm just saying what I see. And when I'm asked my opinion on things as a pundit, as a guest, an ex-boxer on Twitter by some random fella on the street, what do you think on the fight? And I give my opinion on the fight. My opinion is based on what I've seen. That's it. And what I've seen and added to what I know. What I know from boxing, what I've seen from boxing, that was always going to happen again after the Joe Joyce fight. And I was quite vocal about it after the Joe Joyce fight in the fact that I pointed it out. Like I didn't like how that happened, and people said, "Oh, well, his eye was damaged." I get that, but he didn't know that at the time. He's felt pain in his eye, and he's gone to his knee, and he stayed down for 10. That's not really a good sign to other fighters, to people in the industry who will look at that and frown upon that when it's happening at the biggest stage of all for the biggest prize in sport, for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world at Wembley Stadium, and you stay on your knee. That's always going to ruffle feathers in the fight community, in the boxing community, from people who've been in there, who've done it, who would give literally anything apart from maybe the wife and kids to be in that position, to be challenging for the biggest prize in sport for 40, 50 million quid, or whatever it might have been. They would give literally a limb if they had to be in that position again and to go back in time again. And then when they've seen that happen, that's probably the frustration that comes out in most people. I saw, again, as I say, Chisora mentioned today. I've seen a lot of people mention it. I've also seen others who are in boxing saying, like, it's unfair giving them criticism. I get that totally, but this is the industry we're all in, so to speak. We all have to speak about it. We'll all ask questions about it. Media, content, and interviews, and up to date sort of people giving their opinions on things is how we are now. It's 2025. That's how it is, and people are going to talk about it. But all we're talking about is what we've seen, and we're giving our opinion on that. And I just feel, yeah, it was always there, probably from the Joyce fight. If a fight gets hard, then he's possibly going to look for a way out. It happened again in the first Usyk fight, in my opinion. But he's in with someone great like Usyk, so it's difficult to sort of criticize too much because there's no one that could beat Oleksandr Usyk at the moment, and which he's proven time and time again. He's an animal. He's so clever. He's smart. He drains opponents mentally. Energy wise, I thought Dubois looked tired and like he'd really been working hard for 6 or 8 rounds when it was only the third, fourth round. But that's what Usyk does to you if you're not experienced enough or you're not clever enough to not work. A lot of fighters have done it. They've come out in fourth or fifth gear against them. And there's only one way from there, and that's back down. You're certainly not going to get better as the fight goes on. That's what obviously swayed my opinion in the fight to pick the fight to end earlier than the last one, like I said. Um, but again, it's just based on what I've seen in the past from Dubois. I don't think he can change too much, although I think he's had a brilliant run recently, which everyone obviously agrees with. And I think Kieran Farrell joining the team got him loosening up a little bit, throwing more volume of shots and relaxing a little bit. Don Charles, I've always said that I like Don Charles. I think he's a good trainer. I didn't really like the comments when he was calling Usyk a cheap recently, but obviously, I rate him and respect him, and I think he's done a great job with Daniel Dubois. And Daniel Dubois has had a brilliant career so far. He's still a young lad. He can still have another career, another go at his career to extend his career and maybe better what he's done already. But them question marks and them doubts are always going to be there for him, and that's not being harsh. That's just speaking as a fighter, an ex-fighter, a fan, and someone who knows boxing, allegedly.
Yeah. Well, one thing we do have to talk about, and it was a big story coming out yesterday, obviously footage of a party that was held or a gathering, they'd say, at the Dubois household with, Simon Jordan on TalkSport said it was up to 70 people, that Dubois didn't really know anyone there. I mean, look, I'm sure you've seen the video, Paul. It seems a bit, crazy to sort of have something like that before a fight. To see that, and see what transpired obviously on Saturday night, what were your thoughts on what you witnessed?
It's obviously not good, and it's his biggest fight of his life, the biggest chance he's ever going to get. And there's all kinds of people turning up to the house, and I saw Simon Jordan say it, and I saw other people mention it. So it must be relatively true for it to be said so confidently by people like them, should I say, that he asked his dad, could he go for a drive?
Mm.
Now, the age of him, the size of him, if my dad's bringing people to my house like that the day of my fight, my dad's getting told straight, and my dad's a big lump, and my dad can have a fight. And I've got so much respect for my dad, but this is my fight, this is my life, and without them people there, if they're not there, I'm better prepared for the fight, relaxed. I saw Don Charlton interview though saying that's what happens on the Joshua fight, and so he came out with that energy in the walkout in the build up. In my opinion, that energy in the walkout and the build up probably took 2 or 3 rounds off his performance. Now the energy in the Usyk fight wasn't there. It's not because he hasn't trained or he isn't fit. It's because he probably burns away and nets away all that negative energy. Again, no one fights the way I do, and no one fights the way we've all done it in the past. The ones who are more nervous fight week and the ones who are reliving the fight in the brain constantly can't really switch off and who are active and fight day and they burn more energy. The ones who are relaxed and chilled and don't let it get to them too much, they can save their energy, and then they fight on fight night when it happens and they've got the energy to carry out what they've learned in the training camp and the fitness that they've built up in the training camp and take that into the fight. Um, he obviously looked tired in the fight after a few rounds. Punching fresh air wasn't helping him a couple of times, and I think I was saying that while the fight was happening. If you're hitting the target, it's better than missing because when you're missing, you're hitting fresh air. That's at his size, it was happening a lot more. But obviously, messing around, arguments, stress, problems before the fight, at the venue, getting to the venue, getting in the venue, even a traffic jam could throw you off. So
Mm.
all of that added to the fact that he's already facing an uphill battle against a man that beat him relatively easy in the first fight. Probably the writing was on the wall from the start. But again, I don't know his dad. I don't know the setup. I've read, I've heard. We all hear rumors, we all read things. But unless you've actually been in and seen it, you don't know until you know. And at the minute, I haven't really seen any footage of some of these workouts that the dad used to have Daniel doing, or his sister or his other brother. But again, on the flip side of that, he's won an heavyweight championship of the world. He's a multi-millionaire. Caroline's a world champion or interim world champion. The younger brother I've just seen recently in the amateur championships win a national
Yeah.
title. I was there when he did it because my son was on the same show. So they're obviously doing something right in the family, but only they know what goes on behind closed doors. And I've read a lot this week on social media, or this since the weekends, obviously, but it's not really my place to judge. But that party, that setup, that gathering, whatever you want to call it, on the day of a fight at your family home where you're resting, where you need to go out and have a drive. Again, I don't know why he's asking permission to go for a drive. He should have just, it shouldn't have happened in the first place. But maybe that's the dynamics of the relationship again, which it isn't normal in our house. It wouldn't be normal in other houses that I know, and other fighters that I know when the dad age, they wouldn't be listening to the dad as much as Daniel does. But that's how they do things. So, it's not really for me to say.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Look, Paul, before I do let you go, I did want to obviously ask a few topics away from Usyk Dubois. Yeah, yesterday we saw Callum Smith get ordered to fight David Morrell for the WBO interim title. Obviously this was a case of, look, as far as I'm aware, there was the Benavidez fight there for Callum Smith. That didn't happen for one reason or another. So, yeah, I guess sort of your thoughts on that not happening, the move now, I guess, to face looks like David Morrell.
I swear to God, I was in the gym today with Callum and I forgot to even mention to him. And he didn't say a word to me because he's that quiet anyway. Callum was doing
Yeah.
strength sessions with Johnny in one side of the gym, and I was with my fighters in the other side of the gym on the pads. And he's left, and I didn't even see him and say, "No, I'm going for a meal tonight with all the family for Stephen's 40th." So I'll
Mm.
get to see him then. I'll get to speak to him about it. But yeah, listen, he's a good fighter. Obviously, you've seen what happened in his last fight. So I thought that would be a rematch between them two, but the WBO have called for it. So we'll see what happens, whether it goes to purse bids or whether they can negotiate and get the fight done without the need to go to purse bids. I'm not sure how the land lies. I'm not sure what Callum said or what he said because, as I say, I genuinely haven't spoken to him about it, but I'll be seeing him later on. So I'll ask then, and maybe we can ask me this question again by the
Yeah.
end of the week.
But from the Benavidez fight, what was your view, I guess, of that fight not happening for Callum? Because I know Eddie Hearn, and I don't want to sort of get quotes wrong, but the narrative that was sort of painted was that Callum wasn't happy with X amount that was being offered, but Yard was happy with that money, which is why he took that and why he had the Benavidez fight instead of Callum. So from your understanding, what was the process where that fight sort of almost fell apart?
Well, the fight's obviously happening on a card in Saudi Arabia. So the offer came from Saudi Arabia. Callum never
Mm.
received an offer from them. Callum received an offer from PBC.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
the offer didn't come from His Excellency or from Riyadh Season or whatever the show is on. I get confused myself, sorry.
It's all
But
right.
Anthony Yard did get that offer. So Anthony
Mhm.
Yard had one offer straight away. He's accepted the first offer. Callum got one offer only, and that was off PBC. And he's tweeted this himself. It was for less than what he got for the Boaty fight.
Okay.
So there wasn't an offer that came from Ring Magazine, His Excellency, or Seller or Riyadh Season for Callum. They made the Anthony Hard fight instead. Anthony Hard accepted the offer that he got. So that fight's happening. It's a good fight. It's a really good fight on paper. How it pans out on the night, as I say, will be interesting to see. But that's the fight that's happening. So it is what it is.
Interesting stuff. Paul, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Always do appreciate you taking the time to speak to me and talk about
And you,
boxing.
Lou, no problem, mate.
Top man. But
Always a
yeah,
pleasure. Nice to see you, mate.
and you too. I'm sure it won't be too long to catching up again. Appreciate it, mate. Thank you. Cheers.